Anyway, why don't we begin? It's 3:15 here in Amsterdam. Welcome everyone, welcome to the Power of Mental Models session. My name is Helena, I'm a Creator Success Manager here at Miro, and today I'm joined by the fabulous Maya Voye. I learned how to finally pronounce Maya's last name. Maya is a globally recognized growth advisor, lecturer, and consultant. Maya is also a brilliant Mirrorverse creator and a Miro community member. Maya, thanks so much for being here today, and please take it away and tell us a bit more about yourself.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure entirely. And thank you for everybody who's attending this session. The goal of it is to actually excite you and empower you, encourage you to start creating mental models, which is probably the coolest thing that I discovered this year. And it can completely change the trajectory of your career as well as business. So as you see, I'm totally hyped about this subject. But before we hop right into that, and hopefully by the end of the session, really got you excited, empowered, and inspired to start creating mental models of your own, let's hop into some basics that everybody needs to understand before we hit off this conversation. As we're getting more experience, remember I didn't say older, I said more experienced, we are slowly transitioning from operational level of thinking towards the strategy. And I know it sounds like supremely complex, so let's dumb it down by using a very simple example. Imagine that you would be an email marketeer. At the beginning of your career, you would be supremely interested in the question, like, should I put an emoji into the subject line of my email in order to influence the open rate? Or should I be communicating discount right in the subject line, or like have a countdown in the email in order to increase the conversion? That stuff is completely operational. What needs to be done, and it usually is very relevant to us at the beginning of our careers. Once we evolve a little bit, hopefully, I didn't sound like a Pokemon, hopefully, we do tend to think more about tactical stuff. Once we nailed our email structure, we are moving towards tactical question. That, for example, would be, what kind of email platform am I using in order to get great availability stats or something like that? If I'm an e-commerce, should I be transitioning to Klaviyo from MailerLite, for the lack of other examples? So that would be an example of a tactical decision. Whereas strategy, where the fun starts, is when you kind of move away from the whole notion of email marketing and start thinking about customer retention as a strategy. Maybe you would add up SMS marketing, maybe community management or something like that. So you are no longer thinking about channel specific, what needs to be done, but you are thinking about the broader picture. And as you are thinking about this, you inevitably start thinking in pictures. It's just the beautiful mind of ours who is wonderful at recognizing patterns. And here is what really got me excited about this subject. These are the two stallions, thinkers in public, that I love to follow on LinkedIn. I definitely recommend you to do the same. Personally, I hit the bell icon on their profile, so I get a little notification every time those wonderful people post. But here are they. The first one is Elena Verna. She used to work as interim head of growth at Miro, and right now she's helping Amplitude to really move the business to the next level. And the second one is also speaker here at Miro Distributed, and his name is John Cutler. He's this amazing dude. He's a musician, his background. But as you see here from these slides, and these are completely random screenshots, I just took something that looked cool on LinkedIn without any other thought to this. You see here that their ability to communicate their ideas in a clear and visual manner really is a game changer in terms of community. You see here like thousands of likes and a lot of reposts and engagement into these posts. You wouldn't say that they are that holistic as well. So they are a part of a story, but here is how I love to think about this. This is fresh knowledge. Usually the knowledge that we're getting from books is approximately 5 years old. The same applies for like stuff that we Google, which is probably an SNO article of a vendor provider or something like that. But by thinking in public, the brightest minds from our industry can communicate the ideas in clear and applicable fashion. And that got me hyped entirely. However, there was one more thing that I needed to develop before I was able to do that myself. If you are anything like me, you might be very attractive to shiny new object. All the B-reels and TikToks of this world, they're just interesting, right? So we would like to explore them. We are curious about that. Whereas not many of us yet has the habit of reflecting and having those retrospectives with themselves of what was going on, what was relevant, what was successful in their business, and how to systemize this in order to spread the ideas and benefit larger public into making such an equation. I literally had to make a meeting with myself every Sunday when I'm thinking about thinking. Yes, I know how this sounds like. It's completely meta thinking, but nevertheless, I am rethinking my mental processes, what went well in my decision making, what is something that I still need to reflect on further on, and I don't want to be reactive so that I would jump into the next period of the world, which I did, but yeah, it's not my focus at the moment. So just having this discipline of thinking about thinking was the first mind changer that I had this year. And soon I was ready to spin this idea into the practice and see what happens. To be honest, and to be quite blunt and frank, I come from Eastern Europe, and like in our countries, you know, transition has been going on for 20 years, maybe. So when it comes to business, I would say that we come a little bit more out of mindset of scarcity than abundance. We are sometimes a little bit afraid of sharing these ideas in public, whether our competition is going to steal something or if we are good enough design-wise in order to share something. There is a million of questions, barriers, or excuses that would naturally prevent us from doing that. But seeing all this good stuff that can happen out of this, how it can literally elevate the business opportunities and career trajectory, I was still very tempted to do this. So the first time that I did it, I just wanted to play safe. So I put my best-selling framework, it's called Growth Ideation Framework. And I've been helping like thousands of companies with that through my online courses and during my workshops and everything. At first, I was a little, it's my proprietary thing. I should probably like be a little bit sharing it in not entirely or something like that. But then I had this moment like, go big or go home. Like, do it, just do it. You'll see what happens. And actually, it was nothing like I expected. It kind of developed a life of its own. So I was suddenly not the only trainer who endorsed this concept and helped companies to build these growth marketing strategies for the next quarter based on their objectives, but dozens of other people joined. And I was intellectually and morally happy that I could help more people with this framework by training the trainer without harming my business and just like all the other intellectual rubbish, mental gibberish that I talked about beforehand. So I went further in. When it comes to online courses, I have a bestseller on Udemy, and it was intended with 57,000 students already. So it's a huge thing. But what I lack with that specific product is interactivity. Usually as course instructors, we are sharing either some weird Google Sheets or PDFs, and we don't live in an illusion that a lot of people do this. It's just like something which creates friction immersively. So for one of my products, which is a LinkedIn Mastermind lead generation course, which is usually used in B2B environment, how to build employer-generated content and key opinion leadership programs. I dared myself again to go full in and revealed entire framework that I use in otherwise a paying course and programs into Mirrorverse. And still, I managed to make 200K out of this, which is a pretty big deal in the solo entrepreneurship business. But more importantly, I had a peace of mind that this part that the fact that I published is an important part of improving user experience. So that was another really cool stuff that happened, and I was celebrating this moment immersively. I still think it creates a wonderful elevated learning experience. Last but not least, this summer I have had a little rant about personas. I don't know everybody who's on this call, but I have very mixed feelings about personas. Generally, I like them. Just like in real life, I usually see them done in a really long and misunderstanding fashion. Meaning, what usually happens is that, like, team gets instruction maybe from a consultant marketing agency or an investor that they should be doing it, and not enthusiastically do they sit down and maybe harvest from their stereotypes or general worldviews of how this imaginary person should look like, right? They visualize it quite nicely, they put it on the wall, and they forget about this forever. Which is not a really cool way how to do personas. It's just something that we don't recommend. Instead, there was a mental model that I built with my friend, ex-Meta based consultant Simon Belak, which is market problem map. Meaning, whenever you are deciding between different personas, you should be calculating and having this rational decision-making process in mind. So whatever segment do you have in mind, we encourage you to score it based on the pain level that they have, ease of sell, and also the implementation is in order to find your best shot in the market. It's not always a one shot, but it is a very, very, very interesting intellectual tool to help you make decisions. And it did become like pillar for a new book that I'm writing right now about go-to-market strategies, because there have been companies from US, Canada, from Australia, which was really unusual because it was the first company of Australia that I was in touch with. And they were discussing this model with me. So again, it got a life of its own, not saying that it's perfect yet, but I definitely feel that there is something more to it. So I want to explore this further. And by now, I hope that we got a little bit of a gist how it is and why is it important to start thinking in public? Why we should not necessarily be afraid of it if there are some NDAs or some sort of other obstacles down this road. It's very beneficial and it can literally change the trajectory of your career and business. Before we go any further, there is just one definition, the only definition that I have for you today, and it is, we have been talking about mental models for quite some time right now, right? And we would probably like to know what it is. If you have read Atomic Habits, which is one of my favorite books of all times, there aren't many books that literally change the trajectory of my life, but this has. And its author, James Clear, wonderfully defines a mental model, either a framework, a natural model, like maybe a picture, or even an idea or a worldview that explains us how the world works, what are the relationship within things. And I really appreciate this definition of a mental model because it opens up the space for the vast majority and like huge variety of the mental models that guide our decision making and our lives. We will soon start to discuss this in chat. But before we do that, maybe a quick intro into 3 of my favorite mental models. As a marketeer, I was born and raised to bring traffic on the website. But we soon realized that if you only bring traffic on a website and nothing good comes out of it, you are basically burning money, not necessarily making a good business. So conversion rate optimization and these principles of persuasion have been a huge change in my career after I acknowledged them, after I learned about them. By now, I am making a mental checklist, meaning that whenever I have a marketing material, a landing page, or another thing, I am thinking, does it have a social proof, customer testimonial? Am I communicating big numbers, general consensus that this is popular? And even like if I have some sort of urgency to react there, if I have a scarcity element, if I am encouraging people to take a certain decision. So that one was huge for me. I really started to think differently about that. The second one is way more personal. Imagine yourself as you are sitting down on a rainy Saturday and you say, yes, I finally have some time to work on my business. And you enthusiastically start to line down the task that you would have to achieve. And you probably end up with 20 to-do lists, and suddenly this doesn't feel so awesome anymore. Instead, you do start to feel overwhelmed and a little bit less excited about getting this part started. So for me, this Eisenhower metrics, this was huge to understand what is urgent and what is important. And by definition, if I'm only doing stuff which is urgent, I will never progress in business. Like, I have to make time for what is important in order to bring my business to the next level. So by using these metrics and all other prioritization frameworks, I had a peace of mind and better sense of clarity where I want to go next. And the third part that's really interesting to me, because I never thought about this before I started exploring mental models, are just like these generally accepted ideas, such as Pareto principle, 80-20, game theory, aka prisoner's dilemma, inverse thinking, reverse engineering how to get to the goal, law of attention. I didn't want to write karma on the slides, so I write law of attraction. And nevertheless, democracy or even evolution. These are things that we kind of acknowledge that exist without necessarily seeing a tangible proof for it, but these are the mental models that we acknowledge and big ideas that are guiding trajectories of our lives, for the lack of other word. And by now, I am very curious, what are your favorite mental models? What have been ideas, concepts, frameworks, ideologies that have transform the way how you live and do business? Let's spend a minute discussing this in chat, and I will return to Hopin now in order to see how we are doing down this line. And right now the screen share looks ugly, so that's it. I'm monitoring the chat right now. If somebody would like to share the idea, a mental model, a framework that was really impactful in their careers. 7 habits of highly effective people. Love it. Love it. Well done. Compounding interest economics. GTD, could you job to be done? Yeah, probably. Wordly mapping. I don't know this one. This one is supremely interesting. Well done, Max. Oh, hi, Max from LinkedIn. We should talk later. Get things done. Yeah, that's amazing. Hey, thank you so much. That was really cool to see. If you are a curious mind like I am, you might want to copy some of those concepts and browse them later on so you knew something real. Oh, and there is another one from Andreas, real solution for real problems, mind maps. Cool. Okay, that was a good one for me as well. Music thinking frame. Wow, you guys are really an interesting bunch. I'm loving this exchange of ideas here. It's really, really, really awesome. Thank you. Keep them flowing if you want to Google the stuff that you don't know to learn something new, but we will have to proceed towards the continuation of our subject, because soon we will have to develop a mind map or mind model of our own, but not before I tell you a couple of obvious advantages and disadvantages of mental models. Get ready, buckle up, because this will be supremely brutally honest. What are mental models really good at? First off, they are great for lazy thinkers. They are mental shortcuts, so we don't have to tackle any problem that we are facing from a get-go, and we can say, I have a tool for it. Let's do it. Let's create a workshop. Let's lean on it. So that's really, really, really great. The second thing, which is beautiful, is that they help us present our ideas in a clear and comprehensible manner that is despicable. It is like discussable with other peers as well. For that, they are self-improving, and we can always build upon them. And just like they can inspire our way of thinking, and we can build upon them in order to become better in future. And nevertheless, I don't hate to say it. I like it. It's flirting. They make us look intelligent. It's really cool once you are starting to either using on producing mental models. This is the deepest, the highest level of thinking in my universe. This is what interesting people or LinkedIn on just like the general conversation are doing. So the whole image effect of it, and just like your ability, your passion, your devotion towards sharing what you have learned with a larger audience is something that's could be changing career trajectories, which is totally cool. And right now we have to acknowledge what mental models suck at. First thing that I have to say is that they work, but they don't always work. Meaning, if I'm using, for example, this focus work by future framework for OKRing and setting up OKRs, maybe it works for me, maybe it doesn't work for you because you are a different company, you are a different person. So we definitely wouldn't like to think that they are universally applicable and the best for everybody. The second thing, which we have to be careful for, is if we use them too often, we can become rigid thinkers, and we don't want that. If I conducted any market research by using an Asian model such as SWOT metrics, I would deprive myself from additional insights of, for example, analyzing Amazon reviews, doing usability tests, having the whole variety of insights that would help me make better decisions, but instead I would be mentally rigid and I would only use SWOT metrics because this is what they taught me at college. So things are changing and we should be rethinking mental models ourselves. Last but not least, not everybody is so enthusiastic as you and I over mental models. For example, next week I have a key opinion leadership workshop at a technology forum, and it took us great amount of work to convince developers and engineers in order to even consider using LinkedIn, which is cool. I totally respect that. I have nothing but the best minds among these people, but some people would have to see it work before they enthusiastically join this mission of yours to start thinking about mental models. Wouldn't like to discuss this any further, but if it doesn't work from the get-go, maybe you just have to have some evidence and later on you can generate more support. Hope that was an honest conversation. If you have anything else to comment about, please write in chat. I saw you before. You are a really intelligent bunch, so I'm sure that you can give each other even more food for thought to continue this conversation. But I do have to offer a part of a solution here as well. Mirrorverse is actually my Google for mental models. Whenever I have a new intellectual need, for example, right now I am developing like an onboarding process for a company, this would be the first place what I would search for information. There are companies such as Deloitte, SurveyMonkey, Amplitude, Miro themselves publishing amazing workflows, and just like the whole workshops from which we can really learn, so we don't have to tackle any problem from get-go, which is a huge advantage of mental models, like we talked about it just before. So yeah, definitely check out the Mirrorverse. I'm sure Helena will kindly share the link in chat as well. And I don't think that anybody here is on the board, but if you want a board link, yeah, that's fine as well. We can share it again in chat. So yep, another section done. And right now we really gotta roll the sleeves and get this party going. We will learn how to develop your very own mental models, how to think about this. Where I like to start in this process is, why hasn't this happened yet? What are maybe some mental barriers or maybe objective things such as NDAs and confidentiality that prevented you from publishing your first mental model or publishing your more mental models that you have already done? What is the barrier? I would like to spend another minute in chat with you guys. We will move to chat immediately. Here I just wrote a couple of examples, and let's talk about barriers for a sec, just like to acknowledge them, to throw it out, and then we'll get super constructive. So I'm waiting for some barriers in the chat, please. And Max had a beautiful book idea, which I will be copying right now. Unsure where to start. Time, the retrospective. I couldn't have done it if I wouldn't have this dedicated slot to it. Barrier, I'm not the definite voice on X. Neither am I. This is what I'm testing my mental models on social media, as we will learn furthermore. But yeah, thanks for bringing this out, because sometimes it is our imposter syndrome as well, right? That happens a lot, especially with women and young people, when they just don't feel that they have the knowledge as they have. So later on, we will just ask ourselves 3 questions that will help us think furthermore. Criticism or unfinished ideas. Yeah, it leaves us vulnerable. It leaves us open for contradiction, for discussion. So yeah, that's a valid concern as well. I leave a meeting with more than I brought. Sorry, I don't get this one, but I'm sure you do. Okay, I fear that's not good enough. Yeah. Testing of the models. We will cover that. Thank you so much, guys, for your honesty. I really appreciated this discussion because for me it was time, imposter syndrome, and just like I'm not a designer. I cannot design that well, and usually the stuff that I'm producing visually is pretty hideous. So yeah, that was like my personal barrier here as well. So thanks for pitching in. And right now, let's get a little bit more on the constructive manner. So here are the 3 questions that will kickstart your process of what mental model should and would you be like really good enough to create next. The first one is super pragmatic. This is the lower hanging fruit. What are the questions that people keep on asking you? What you are sick and tired of answering again and again and again? This is probably where you're a go-to for that source of information. And this is something that is the first element that we need to consider. The second one is even more pragmatic. This is the stuff that we already master. Maybe you have a template where you work for a product launch or for onboarding or a checklist for how to do stuff with influencers or something like that. We are searching for an asset which has been tested dozens of times, that you know it works. If you got woken up at midnight and you would have this checklist, you could still do it. These are the things that are bulletproof. So what is something that you have perfected to work whenever you need it? Something which is bulletproof by now. And the third question, this is where the passion is. What are you intellectually curious to tackle? For example, mental models. It's my first time that I'm speaking about mental models. I started to discover them in January. I was launching this stuff before, but I didn't comprehend that these are mental models and I was not fully aware of what the potential is. So it was a transition, but I wanted to think more about thinking. I wanted to perfect my way of thinking in order to become a better professional, hopefully also a better person, but yeah, to challenge my logic a little bit so I don't have a fixed mindset. These are the 3 questions that work spectacularly well for me. I will leave this on the screen right now because if I stop screen sharing, you won't see it. And I would like to ask Helena to monitor in the chat for the next 2 minutes or so. If you guys, by now, have an idea, what is the mental model that you would like to build by the end of the year, probably, right? What could you publish either on social media, in Mirrorverse, or just like as a slide deck or a workshop concept that brings the best out of you and really gets you excited about sharing these ideas? Let's spend 2 minutes thinking and elaborating this in chat, and probably I will be too curious at some point and I will just jump in the chat as well.
All right. Yeah, I'm here. I'm looking at the chat, guys. Bring out your ideas.
Can't wait. And I promise not to steal them. I have a huge backlog of my own.
Don't we all? All right.
So, what interesting stuff are you seeing, Helen? I'm eager to hear.
Some Reese. I'm sorry if I just slaughtered your name. I'm working on building automation into our processes and have reached for mental models many times in refining process steps. Then Max has wanted to publish Ikigai.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, these are the ones I'm seeing so far, I guess. People are thinking.
Yeah. And it's a process. I mean, 2 minutes is just like a pressure point, but maybe somebody has thought of this before. And you will get this access to this board. So whenever you get really serious, right now I'm working on a planner because for 3 years I have been putting my weekly goals into this ugly notebook. So right now I'm digitalizing it and give it out to the public as a PDF if it would help with their goal setting, because I have tested this for 3 years and it works wonderfully well for me. Cool. Do we have anything else or do we continue the conversation?
Let me just read a couple because we're running out of time. So Karina's saying, nurturing a true sense of belonging in organization in a hybrid context. That's it. That's in inverted commas. And Tony is saying, planning of pause.
Pots. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow, that's really exciting. Maybe you could check out Mirrorverse if you can have like a little bit of a help if somebody has done it before, or you can go from a get-go with your frameworks, but absolutely wonderful ideas. And again, appreciating the variety of this crowd. So I am a type of person who gets excited about many things, and I need to prioritize everything in life. If I have multiple ideas that I would like to test, this is the framework that I like to use. It's ICE. Impact, confidence, ease. If somebody wrote RISE there, like such as Rich at the beginning, that's absolutely wonderful. But just like to quickly explain that, impact is how likely this is going to help me achieve my goal. My goal could be to impact as many people as possible or to sell workshops. I don't care, you know that. Ease, how easy is something to implement? For the majority of us, like creating a spreadsheet is probably easier than creating an infographic because not everybody here is a designer. So what is the MVP that I can launch? And confidence, I love to keep it here because it's just a gut feeling how likely it is going to work. And this is the fun part. Based on your feedback of what you have written, that are some barriers, this is how I test my mental models before they are ever published and developed into the entirely. First of all, I love to discuss these ideas with my peers, with my colleagues on workshops or even podcasts. And I'm monitoring people's faces very, very, very diligently because what I would love to see is what sparks their interest, like their sparkle in the eye when they got like a little bit more awake and something like that. These are the wow moments that illustrate to me that I am onto something, that I should like explore this idea further. The second one is just like to simply test a simple description of this idea on social media, like we saw beforehand with Elena and John Cutler, extremely good thinkers. Definitely follow them if you are not already. And nevertheless, mental models will never be perfect from a get-go. Remember market problem map that I talked about beforehand? We are at iteration number 5 right now. Not saying that the first iteration was shit, but by now we got feedback from so many companies, what was useful for them, what they struggle with, that we can make it better. That it's kind of our obligation to make it better if we want to elaborate it on a longer term. And this is the ideal of a mental model. This is what we're trying to pursue here. For a mental model to be self-reliant, to be self-explanatory. So I don't have to record 10-minute tutorials or like run workshops myself. We would love to create these ideas that have life of its own and benefit thousands of people to become our intellectual legacy and a source of a new knowledge that we are creating. So that's the ideal. This is what we are aspired to achieve. We don't always necessarily do so. But nevertheless, just to conduct this process a little bit, we talked about whatever is yellow here. So ideate, how to find ideas for that. And seriously, like if you are struggling with your first mental model, that happens with positioning as well. I like to send an email or a private message to 5 of my closest confidence friends and colleagues. What am I really good at? How would you describe the value that I'm bringing to your business? That's a very transformational exercise. So if you are facing such challenges, I definitely recommend you to do that. It's not asking for testimonials. It's just like, could you, in your words, tell me what are my superpowers? That could be beneficial. So after you have a bunch of those ideas, you decide upon them and you develop an MVP. Again, an MVP doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to pay 300 euros for design or just like work on it for 2 months. It can be simple. It can be a bunch of circles in Miro that you screenshot and post on LinkedIn. It can be a spreadsheet. It can be really low-fi, low-resolution stuff. So don't overthink it. It's an MVP. Then we test it. We talked about this right on the previous slide. We measure it. And here is another point where I absolutely love Mirrorverse, because it does provide me stats of how many people have visited my templates and how many times was it downloaded. So in a way, it's like a conversion on my website, and I have this feedback loop that I wouldn't have if I would just be sharing them on social media, dark socials, where I don't have this feedback loop of who has benefited from it and who has done it. Like if people are kind enough, they would write to me and we would start a conversation, but that's maybe 1% of the people. So I shouldn't rely on that too much. Based on this feedback, we will learn and preferably, ideally, go better into the next cycle, market problem map version 6, as we talked about before. Always remember that distribution is the queen. Inventing mental model is something, but introducing it to the public, making sure that it reaches its full potential, requires some marketing work. There is a feature in Miro Organic that automatically highlights the newest models. So there is some organic traffic if you will be publishing in Mirrorverse. I'm sure that you are well used of utilizing your own social media for that, or blog posts or newsletters, whatever you have. But what has worked perfectly well for me were also B2B influencers. And here, what you see here, what is really ugly, is a picture that Simon and I drew this summer, how we will popularize the market problem map concept. And like having this feedback from professionals in the similar space that we had was really one of the strongest channels for us, in addition to close professional groups. So yeah, we left ourselves vulnerable and just like, we are searching for feedback. Like Pitbull said, ask for money, get advice, ask for advice, get money twice. Okay, that was a little bit of a promo for Pitbull, but nevertheless. Look, here is my challenge for you. We have talked about this extensively right now, but you know what makes the difference? When you actually do it. My challenge for you is to create a mental model by the end of the year. It can be in Mirrorverse, full-fledged workshop or template thingy if you are like really in it to win it, or it can be a simple graphic on social media that you would just like to have feedback for. Don't be afraid from it. Thinking in public is always more rewarding than you think of. And you know how it is in life and business. You never like succeed 100% of the times. You get better with iteration. So here is my challenge. I would very much like to encourage you to start thinking in public and to really invent your mental model by the end of the year. And once you do that, I would very much appreciate you if you could share it with me on LinkedIn, which is my preferred social media. And I'm kindly asking Helena to share it in the chat if you want to continue this conversation. And Helena also invites you here to check out Mirrorverse and to join like Miro community itself. Maybe we'll have a minute for a question, maybe we will not, but I would just like to finish this by wrapping up what we have talked about today. The first thing is that thinking in public, as scary as it sounds, it usually pays dividends, and it gives you feedback, it gives you great positioning, as well as great insights that you can build upon on later. The second one is mental models, which are really like the way how we think. For me, these are the pillar of human civilization. So really powerful thing, acknowledge them, just as you are absorbing life and learning new stuff. That's another important thing. And last but not least, you are probably closer to inventing a mental model that you think right now. So do ask yourself those questions, do ask for your peers' feedback, and I'm definitely looking forward to celebrating the launch of your new mental model on the platform of your choosing. Thank you so much. Helena will take us from here.
Thank you so much, Maya. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, but we are happy to hear from you on Mirrorverse, Miro community, Maya. your socials that I also shared. So please get in touch with us and tell us what you have created. Maya, thanks so much for a call to action. I mean, this is very, very
I love call
useful.
to action. Action is where the fun stuff happens.
Yeah, you're challenging us all to do something, which is really inspiring. Thanks so much for the session. As I said, and a lot of people have said, it's inspiring and you are inspiring. So thank you so much. Hope to collaborate with you very soon and hear more about whatever you're up to. I heard there were some good things cooking. I don't know if it's a secret, so I'm not going to say anything. So yeah, thanks. And thank you everyone for joining and being so active in the session.
And just like one spoiler at the end. So Miss Helena here is pretty awesome as the queen of Mirrorverse. Whenever I needed help, if I didn't know how to publish something, she was my go-to. She's nothing but joy and glory to work with. So whenever you face these problems, this is the woman that you want to know. So you met her today. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. I'm all red. I'm all blushing. Thank you so much,
You look
everyone.
great.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Take care. Ciao. Bye.